Hello and welcome to part 2 of my rather peculiar review of this year's space epic, Dune, in which I'll be discussing 3 things I didn't really like from an artistic standpoint. If you haven't already seen part 1 where I talk about 3 things I really enjoyed, then I suggest doing so, especially as I'll be referencing certain things I already said. Also, be aware that there is a part 3 coming out shortly after this video that'll discuss the ways in which Dune did some things that no movie really should. But for now, our focus is turned more towards the artistic. Though before we can get around to doing that, I just need to give a content warning for the following topic: colonialism. Also, spoiler warning, not just for the movie, but for the books as well. So you have been warned. If you like our work and appreciate the research put into each video, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon. You can also support us by liking, commenting, and sharing our work on social media like Twitter, Reddit, and Discord. So that out of the way, let's discuss a number of issues I take with the film, starting with the way in which the various armour designs can be a little difficult to tell apart. This is a point made with one scene in particular coming to mind, and that is the Sardaukar ambush as the Harkonnen storm the Atreides palace. Due to the darkness, the white armour of the Sardaukar and the grey armour of the Atreides became very difficult to tell apart, to the point that I thought these were Atreides reinforcements. Watching things again, I did see that the ship dropping the Sardaukar was the ram head ship of the Harkonnen, but the fact is, nowhere had the movie made clear that only the Harkonnen forces use this design. In fact, I just assumed that to be the case in referring to it as a ram head ship. So it really was confusing until one of the Atreides decided to yell out, "Sardaukar!" Oh, thanks mate. Though it kinda makes me wonder whether the director noticed the problem during shooting, so chose to have one of the actors on set yell this out, rather than try changing the lighting or redesigning the entire Sardaukar faction. It also didn't help that the Sardaukar was shown earlier, in brighter lighting I must add, and yet they appeared to have darker armour than they did in the night scene. Yes, they're in the shadow here, but they still appear brighter at night, so yeah, no idea what's going on there. There was also another scene in which I had a similar problem, this time a prophecy sequence in which the Fremen, led by Paul, can be seen ambushing the Sardaukar. And the moment they clash, it's not really clear who is on which side, which is fine for a prophecy sequence, but really needs to be sorted before the second part. Also, what's going on here? I do think this whole issue stems from the need to modernize a lot of the older designs. Like, I can respect that, and I just want to be clear, I am not after the puffy pantaloons of the 2000 miniseries Sardaukar, but I feel like a lot of the character has been drained from these forces. This is spaced feudalism where ranged weapons have largely been made obsolete with the invention of personal shields. With the exception of the Fremen who rely on stealth, the forces should have bright colours. The Atreides green, the Harkonnen red, the Imperial gold. All of these are signifiers that could have been used to help not just first-time viewers, but even people who have been fans of the universe for decades. The darkness in the palace scene really bleeds the colours together, resulting in it suffering the same problem as the Long Night episode from the final season of Game of Thrones, and that makes what should be an impactful scene more confusing than anything else. Though I guess that may have been what the director was going for, and if so, consider me very confused. The next point I need to criticise is the underdevelopment of Dr. Yueh's character and the plot holes it inevitably resulted in. Now I know some people feel like all the characters were underdeveloped, and whilst I don't necessarily agree, the one character I cannot defend is Dr. Yueh's. Let's start with his role in the plot. Dr. Yueh is a device that drives everything forward, not simply because he's part of the Atreides household, but because of his training at the Yueh Inner School. It's their members who are marked with the same diamond on Dr. Yueh's forehead, the diamond he uses to show Paul and Jessica the supplies he had put on the ornithopter. Their training is so extreme that not a single one in the history of their order has ever betrayed a patient, which is an important fact when we consider how the universe has literal truthsayers, living lie detectors who can be used to rat out traitors, a fact that is even noted as being the case in the film. This creates a problem as it leaves one to wonder why the Atreides didn't use truthsayers when picking their inner circle. Meanwhile, in the books, they did exactly that. Everyone went through that security check except the Doctor, whom it was literally unthinkable from an in-world perspective that he could betray them due to his conditioning. That's what makes the reveal that the Harkonnen have managed to break said conditioning so shocking. Yet, by leaving out that context, the fall of the Atreides on Arrakis and the death of Leto takes on the appearance of a silly mistake rather than the Harkonnen achieving what had previously been thought to be impossible just to kill them. It creates a narrative dissonance between the notion we've been sold that Leto Atreides is this astute tactician, when he fails to even consider basic betrayal. Though it's not just the plot that suffers, it's the rest of the characters, particularly Paul's. In the books, Dr. Yueh is one of Paul's mentors, as much as Duncan imparts. He actually gives the young Atreides his own copy of the Orange Catholic Bible, containing the amalgamated writings of a number of current Earth religions, writings which help him figure out his path personally, as well as take on the role of Paul Moadib. Dr. Yueh was not some unimportant side character in the books. His presence helped strengthen the reader's connection with the Atreides family, and I feel like he was done dirty by the movie. I'm almost surprised, though happy, that they kept the tooth poison scene from the books, as that is sadly the only redeeming quality for this notably tragic character. The last point I want to criticise here is the movie's failure to fully explore the people of Arrakeen and how much that lessened the impact of the Harkonnens' cruelty. For a movie set in the city of Arrakeen, you see its people a whopping total of 4 times, and they only speak in one of those scenes, the one with the waterer. Outside of that, we see a crowd when the Atreides land, we see a few more when Jessica picks a house servant, glossing over them to pick the Fremen, and we see the spice workers who are saved from the worm, a scene which puts more focus on Leto's actions than them. And to be clear, I don't include Dr. Keenes in this, since in spite of being of both Siege and Village, nowhere is the Village side of her character explored. To the audience, she is indistinguishable from any of the Fremen we see on screen. So when the Harkonnen lets off a barrage of missiles on the city or starts slicing through buildings with their ship-mounted lasgun, the impact isn't there. Dune 2021 turned what is a vibrant city in the books into nothing more than a fucking factory, with the points of interest being the spice processor and the landing pad. That's all. The issue of which is the fact that the people of Arrakeen are as oppressed as the Fremen, largely being made up of working class folk who were brought to Arrakis under the promise of a new life, only to be enslaved. For you see, the spice melange of Arrakis is not only highly addictive, withdrawal is lethal. Adding to that, once processed and taken off planet, spice is so valuable that it said a single briefcase of the stuff could buy a small planetoid, meaning that outside of the super wealthy, you're pretty much a prisoner on Dune the moment you've been exposed to the spice melange. And as the movie showed us, it is very easy for the spice to become airborne. So the people of Arrakeen cook using spice, making spice cakes, spice coffee and spice beer to ensure that they get their daily intake of the stuff. Not enough to give them the power of the guild's navigators or even the hallucinations of the Fremen, but enough to keep them alive. That's why even Arrakeens have the blue eyes, albeit not to the same degree as the Fremen. And I feel like the movie does such a great disservice to the story in cutting all this out. It removes a central social issue, namely balancing the needs of the Arrakeen to the sovereignty of the Fremen, since whilst people like Dr. Keynes are at home in both worlds, many Arrakeens don't want to assimilate with Fremen culture, or simply wouldn't be accepted to any siege, as they'd be perceived as a burden. Because yes, Fremen culture is both ageist and ableist. Thing is, it's a problem I feel has such a simple solution. Display a little bit of life in the city. I kinda wish that as the Atreides were making their way over from the spaceport, we'd gotten a low-angle shot from the street, looking up, showing the passing ornithopter as a worker buys some spice coffee or spice cakes from a street vendor, rushing to get out of the sun as he drops his change into the tin cup of someone maimed whilst working under the Harkonnen. Just anything to show that this is a living city, not a set piece to blow up. One thing Adita mentioned when I brought this up was how she noticed the Harkonnen and the Sardaukars on-screen violence was very tame, considering their depictions in the books and in previous media, and how she felt that decreased the impact for her personally. And I do get what she's saying, but we both understand that this film is trying to make itself more accessible to teenage audiences. Just see who they cast as Paul and Chani, and that becomes pretty clear. I don't think you need to go full on-screen genocide. I don't even think you need to show Arrakeens being murdered. But when you fail to show that a place is lived in, the violence, whilst impressive, invokes about as much empathy as watching a child push over their toy blocks. And I know that sounds really harsh and is probably going to annoy some people who really like the film. Again, I do enjoy the film. I thought it was good in general, and I have a lot of hope for part 2. But part of passion in art is learning to see the flaws in something and be willing to discuss them. So yeah, those are 3 points I felt the movie really dropped the ball with, meaning that all we have left to discuss are the ways in which the movie did certain things that... What the hell were they thinking? Seriously, it's 2021. It's time to do better, and we'll be discussing that in more detail in the next video. So be sure to subscribe and stick around. But yeah, what did you dislike about the film? What 3 things would have made your list? Do you disagree with any of my choices? Did I miss anything you noticed? If so, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Just understand that abuse won't make it through. And if you like what we do here, please consider becoming one of our wonderful patrons who make all this possible. On that note, I'd just like to thank the following people: Matthew Kovac, Hannah Banghart, Gerrit Van Voorst, Cthulhu, and Flynn. And with that said, take care.